Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debbie Silber, and today's guest is Lisa Latimer. Self-healing from over a decade of toxic relationships, which left her with crippling insecurities and fear of failure. Lisa Latimer helps women fearlessly create fulfillment in life by increasing their self-awareness to step into their power. Lisa knows firsthand that with strong roots in self-awareness, the words and actions of others can't knock us off our journey. You know what I think is one of the most painful types of betrayal? Self-betrayal. My next guest, Lisa Latimer, is going to be talking about the connection between betrayal and self-betrayal and how self-awareness can help you heal. Here's Lisa. Okay, everybody, you're in for a big treat. We have Lisa Latimer with us, and we're talking about betrayal and self-awareness. You know, so often we talk about betrayal of a family member, partner, friend, coworker, self. Well, we're diving in deeply to the self piece. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me, Debbie.
Glad you're here. Glad you're here. So what do you mean by self-awareness? Let's just start there.
Yeah. So when I talk about self-awareness, I mean getting to the core of who you really are. And that's minus all of the background noise, whether it's coming from friends, family, coworkers, social media. Just when you boil everything down, it comes down to you. So who are you at your core? What drives you? What are your motivations? What are your beliefs? What makes you excited? What can't you stand doing even for 2 seconds? The good, the bad, and everything in between of who you are. Knowing it, accepting it, allowing yourself to be a work in progress, but also being able to love and respect yourself for who you are now, in spite of whatever it is that you're trying to work on.
So how would self-awareness then be affected if you've been betrayed?
Oh, in so many ways. And you mentioned that often we talk about betrayal as in terms of family or friends or significant other.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times betrayal, it is the family or the significant other, or even in school, that sets the stage. Those are kind of like a lot of times the first encounters that we have with betrayal. And with self-awareness, we do a lot of reflective journaling and a lot of kind of looking back. A lot of times you get the message that going into your past, don't look that way because that's not the way that you're going, but you have to look that way because that's when you get to the roots of things like limiting beliefs and false truths and those patterns like, self-betrayal, where they started. If it started with someone else, how did you then internalize it and pick it up? And create your own patterns of self-betrayal and kind of run with that throughout your life.
So can you give us an example? Like, let's say someone was betrayed by their parent. Their
Mm-hmm.
parent, did something horrible, awful, and this child has suffered and took it personally and took that experience and believed, let's say they're not important, they don't matter, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
How does it show up in their lives? What do you see?
Oh, it could show up in so many ways. And we're all individuals. That's why I focus on self-awareness, because this kind of one size fits all solution that we're often sold, it just doesn't work. So for one person, it could manifest itself in their relationships. Maybe you're someone who's always going for the person that doesn't have time for you, that doesn't prioritize you. Maybe you don't prioritize yourself. Maybe you're someone that now, okay, you have a family, you have a husband or a wife, you're married, and you find everything in the world to tackle other than the things that feel good for you.
What's interesting about that? It's think about it. We learn that, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's not that it's good. It's just so familiar. So we take it on, whether it's we choose someone who just is very similar to the person that we learned that from, or we do it to ourselves. And this reminds me of way back in the day when I was helping with weight loss. And, let's say you had a bad day and mom gave you ice cream, and then you grow up and you do the same thing. You give
Right.
yourself the ice cream.
That's self-soothing, yeah.
Right. So it really seems like with the, not giving yourself that time. If you grew up feeling, well, I don't deserve that time, you choose
Mhm.
someone who does that to you as well, or you do it to yourself. Yeah.
Right, right. And it could also manifest itself in the workplace. If you are constantly saying yes to everything and you're not being properly compensated, you get to a point where you kind of allow yourself to be a doormat in different situations. And those situations they could span across every part of your life where you're just not comfortable demanding more, expecting more of yourself and others. And again, then that just continues to feed that pattern. The sooner you learn to create, even just initially starting small, healthy boundaries for others and for yourself. Like people always talk about, okay, set the bar high for the day. You should also set a minimum for yourself every day. What is the minimum that I need in this aspect of my life and that aspect of my life in order to feel fulfilled? It is just as important, especially if you're just starting out, because it could feel a little intimidating at first, to set minimums and then work your way up from there.
And boundaries can be so tough for so many people, and those boundaries were crossed and we're so used to that. So give us some examples of, because it can be really hard for some people to say, okay, you know what, the old me was horrible at boundaries, didn't set any boundaries, and this newly emerging version of me wants to set some boundaries. So in what ways would be like a great place to test that out with setting the bar kind of low?
Right. So you want to kind of use whatever degree of self-awareness that you do currently have. Because if you set a bar like, okay, or like make a general goal, like I'm just going to stop letting people walk all over me. I'm going to start being a bitch, that's so general. And it's just such a huge leap outside of most of our comfort zone. So start small. So it might look something like, setting a bar just for things that you could do for yourself initially. So what do I need to do for myself? I need to get up and I need to take a shower every morning. I need to throw a little makeup on every morning. We were just talking, I need to do a little roller set on my hair once a week to feel a little polished and feel like I'm stepping out, as my best self. And then you can move on to expanding those boundaries and asking of those of other people. Now, what boundaries do I feel comfortable setting for others? And it's in keeping those promises to yourself that then starts to change this switch in your head and create a new pattern where you're not just so focused on this pattern of self-sabotage and self-betrayal, because now you're starting to keep promises to yourself, even if they're just little promises. And so when it comes to self-talk, because I'm huge on self-talk as well, now you're not just feeding that negative self-talk that says, oh, see, you can't even keep promises to yourself. How are you going to ask other people to do the same?
Mhm.
Now you're starting to build up that positive self-talk. Wow, this felt good today. Wow, I could do this. I can follow through. Yeah, follow through. I could be true to myself. And
Mhm.
so now I could start expecting others to do the same.
I like that because I'm always looking for the positive spin on something. And I like the idea of showing yourself some boundaries and some self-love and self-care. And
Mhm.
then once you realize you could trust yourself and you've built that up within yourself, because maybe you never even did that before, then and from that space that you can try setting those boundaries with others. So we're our own practice, our own practicing grounds here, and then from there we can take it to the next level. So how do you use self-awareness to heal from betrayal?
Well, you have to take it all the way back. And like I said, we're so often discouraged not to look at our past. And some of us have some really difficult pasts, to look at. But the fact of the matter is that we have to go back. We kind of practice this bandage, this surface healing. And all that ever does is, you have a band-aid on something, you're going good, it's going smooth, and then all of a sudden that band-aid rips off, something triggers you. And that wound is just gaping open all over again. So with self-awareness, you take it all the way back. You find the roots, the origins of those wounds, and you do what I like to call more of a surgical fix to the problem. You really have to roll up your sleeves, get in there, face the unpleasant. And something that I actually find quite empowering is reframing. So you can go back to a situation that perhaps you felt like a victim or you felt betrayed, and you can look at it from a new perspective all this time later and say, you know what? this person hurt me. This person lashed out at me. I was the strong one in this situation. If you were cheated on, it was that person's weakness and lack of discipline or self-control, not yours. So there's always a way to reframe the situation. Like you said, you're always looking for that positive outlook, and it will give you that positive outlook and completely flip the situation so that now you're the one in control of it rather than it being in control of you.
Hmm. And you mentioned earlier about really getting to the root of it. I'll never forget. I remember learning this from Harbecker. I was at one of his intensives years ago, and he was explaining how, let's say you have you have a lemon tree,
Mhm.
and you grow lemons, but you don't like lemons. You want apples. So you take all of the lemons off the lemon tree and you go get a bushel of apples and you take them on. And you're like, oh, I have an apple tree, right? That's like the quick fix. And you think, oh, problem solved. And then the next season rolls around. The next time, that tree has bears fruit,
Right.
and what do you get? You get lemons because it's a lemon tree. It's not an apple tree. And it's really that question of, if you, and I remember he said, if you want to change the fruits,
Mm,
change the roots. And that's really
that's
where it
awesome.
begins. And it stuck with me because it's so true. We expect this the big thing to change
Right.
by handling something at the surface level, but the
Exactly.
real work is underneath. And
Absolutely. And it's dirty. You get your hands dirty at the roots, right? But
and I
it's
think
important.
most people are just they don't want to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Transformation is messy, sticky, it's uncomfortable, and a lot of people just don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And self-awareness takes a level of courage as well, because it may be hard to look at.
Absolutely. But it is you have to, again, you have to look at it like, I am worth it. This is for my benefit. And again, I am worth it. Let me embark on this journey and let me set this bar where this is something that I'm going to do. A lot of times we expect people, or we expect a certain degree of treatment from others that we're not willing to do for ourselves. So you have to do it for yourself first. If you can't take the little bit of unpleasantness that comes with, something like personal growth and becoming more self-aware, then it's going to be more difficult for you to expect others to go and leave their comfort zone to make you feel how you deserve to feel. So you have to do it yourself first.
So let's talk about truth and false truths. You
Hmm.
know, so often we can live a whole lifetime based on something that wasn't even true, or we may have misinterpreted, as we swore that it was true.
Right.
And I teach the difference between a belief and a fact. A belief is just something that we've said enough times. Something said it to us enough times and we believe it, or we say it enough times and we believe it, compared to a fact, which can't be disputed. Gravity, throw
Exactly.
something up, it's coming down. That's the way it is.
Right.
So how do you even know what's true, what's not, and what do you do with that?
Well, that is something, and I feel like it's really one of the most underutilized tools. It's talked about, but we often don't want to do it because it feels like we're throwing something else on our to-do list. But with journaling and having kind of this order in which we look back at things, you look at you discover patterns in your life, and a lot of times it'll be patterns that are not working for you. And then it will lead you to the belief system that created that pattern. And I have, in one of my courses, I have something, this exercise. It's actually really fun. It's called where you kind of debunk that false truth. So you
Mhm.
look for proof to the contrary. So if, for example, you believe that relationships end in cheating, in someone cheating. So either, maybe you just decide to not look for a relationship. Maybe you're someone that then goes into a relationship and you decide to cheat because you feel like, you'd rather not be the fool. So you're just going to go ahead and not take it seriously to begin with. It manifests in different ways in different people. That could come from, again, getting together with your friends and them complaining about their relationship woes and things that you hear in social media. But then you have to kind of stop and bring it back and look and say, wait a minute, my parents have been married, in a happy marriage for X amount of years. Oh, look at this couple over here. I know they have a wonderful family, or they have a wonderful setup, or you know what, maybe the relationship that I'm currently in is actually going really well and it actually feels good. Why should I sabotage it with these thoughts? So you always have to go against your need and desire for confirmation bias. You always have to look for the things that can challenge what you think and what you hold as a truth, because that might show you that, hey, this is not a truth, this is a belief. There is a lot of evidence going against it, so I don't have to be this way. There are a lot of other options out here.
This reminds me of the work of Byron Katie, where you ask yourself these, and I don't remember the 4 questions. I know everybody listening right now, they're like, oh yeah, the 4 questions. And I don't remember exactly what they are, but I think it starts with, is this true? Can I be sure that this is true?
Right.
And I don't remember what the other 2 are. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And the idea is just the line of questioning can unravel something, because so often I think we don't question it. We just assume something is true, or someone says something and we assume they know better than us. I'll never forget, as a new mom, years ago, I was new to being a mom, and I just assumed that anybody who had kids older than mine knew better than me and knew more than me.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, because it wasn't that it was true. It was just their experience.
Exactly.
And if we take the time to question it, that's when we can find our own truth. So is there a certain line of questioning that would be helpful in your experience?
In terms of questioning, it's more the journaling and just looking around. I'm very much an observer, a people watcher. So if you're someone, and this is huge, and I write this in my book as well, like, you have to, journaling gets you into the habit of walking around with your consciousness switch flipped on, because there are examples, there are messages, whether you believe in God or the universe, that are constantly coming to you. But we're just in this state of autopilot and so consumed with being busy, because we think a full schedule is going to equal fulfillment. So we're just so busy piling on, half-hearted obligation after half-hearted obligation, that we miss these signs. But it doesn't have to be a specific line of questioning. It just has to be walking around and learning to be more of an observer, and learning to be a little bit more inquisitive as well. And I feel like, unfortunately, we're living in a time where, we're kind of being trained to stay in our own lane. So if you think like this, you have to stay in your box over here. So we're actually kind of having that inquisitiveness like forced out of us, and learning to stay within our confirmation bias and cling to it even harder than ever. But it's really, we don't do ourselves any favor, especially when it comes to personal growth, and just staying within that one frame of perspective that we have on something. You have to get out and be an observer to whatever capacity you get out and can observe, because nothing is going to break a false truth like seeing that proof to the contrary, saying, wow, there's another way of doing it. So you have to just be an observer. I used to sit in the park with just kind of a cup of coffee and just, relax and watch after my run, just for 10, 15 minutes. And just in 10 or 15 minutes of doing something like sitting on a park bench, you get so much information and insight watching other people.
I remember, wasn't it Eckhart Tolle who sat on a bench for like 2 years? And look what happened to him. So that's good. And it's interesting, because you mentioned personal development. And this is also why I am a huge proponent of never just learning from one person.
Oh yeah.
If you only choose that one person to learn from, what happens if that person is a bit off? What happens if they're coming, their perspective is coming through a skewed lens? What I really appreciate is learning from so many different types of people, but they're all saying the same thing in their own way. Because then I can look and say, oh, wow, you know what? Wayne Dyer said it this way, and Marianne Williamson said it this way, and Neil Donald Walsh said it this way, and Michael Beckwith said it this way, and and I get all the people that I read and follow and everything, and say, oh, they're all kind of saying the same thing in such a different way. And then from there, and then I mix it in with my own, and that becomes my truth.
Absolutely. And like you said, you get to pick and choose what parts of what they're each saying really resonates with you and your experience. But I have to say, I also don't overdose on it. I don't put myself into that world as much maybe as I probably could, because I don't want to muddy the waters too much of my own just ability to sit back and reflect and have my own thoughts and ideas develop and really start to connect those dots. But I think that it is great though to take a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and just, whatever resonates, you hold on to that and use that to fuel your own kind of perspective.
And that's such a great point too, because sometimes we keep taking in,
Right.
and there's no room. I had this thing all during the summer. It was so nice. We would go to the beach every weekend, and I would take a nice long walk. It really took me 2 hours, and it was the most wonderful thing. And this is what I did. On the way there, I would listen to something inspiring, educational, inspirational, whatever it was. Listen, take in. And then on the whole way back, nothing. My own thoughts, purging, letting go, being open to receiving whatever information I was supposed to learn. And there was it worked out so beautifully, because I'm such a learner. I just love learning. But I would take it in, and then there would be that whole hour just to undo and just to have no agenda and just see what shows up. And it's interesting, because as powerful as it was with all the things I was learning, what I was receiving when I wasn't listening to anything was sometimes so much more powerful.
Absolutely. It's amazing when you can read something and it kind of creates that aha moment. But what makes those aha moments even stickier and even more just incredible is when you kind of come to it on your own. When you take a little bit of that, and like you said, you kind of let it simmer, and then just, you're having your own thoughts, and then just boom, this amazing thing just kind of happens. And really, I've gone into sessions where the next morning have woken up hysterical crying, because in a dream, it kind of brought up something that I had not remembered or hadn't been in touch with in so long, but something reminded me of it. And then I woke up and it just felt like huge weight off of me, or I just felt like, oh my gosh, I finally get it. So yeah, it's important to let things in, be a receiver, and be good at processing as well.
So getting back to betrayal, is there a type of betrayal you feel is harder maybe to overcome than another?
I do. I think that by far the most difficult form of betrayal to bounce back from is self-betrayal. I think that we betray ourselves worse than anyone could. And it could stem from having been betrayed by someone or other people. But when we continue that pattern of self-betrayal and self-sabotage, it really kind of it drives it home. It kind of sticks within your being. It gets into your psyche and it stays there. And I talk a lot about intuition and doing what's best for you intuitively. We are so bad at connecting to, listening to, and acting on our intuition. And once we get into this pattern of self-betrayal, we completely lose touch with it. And even when we kind of have that thing where something's wrong before you actually know it's wrong, we won't act on it because we don't trust ourselves, because we are in a pattern of betraying ourselves. So you're walking around in your own body and you can't trust the person that you are. You can escape from people that you don't trust. How do you escape yourself though?
Yeah.
When you betray yourself on a regular basis.
So how do you know that you're betraying yourself?
It could be something as little as saying, you know what, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z tomorrow, and not doing it. It could be something where you're in a relationship and, you're getting that gut feeling, this isn't right, something's not right, and never following up with that, waiting until it completely hits you over the head and knocks you over. It could be constantly depending on other people to validate you. I actually recently had a situation where my high school ex called me because he's going through something with his family and he doesn't trust his own memories and his own intuition. And he was like, you were there for that. He was looking for validation rather than just acting on what he knows is his truth. So when you get your roots dug deep enough in self-awareness, you don't need the validation. It's a lot more difficult to manipulate a person that is strong in their self-awareness. You can't be victimized because you are standing firm in your truth. And it doesn't matter if anyone else sees or has lived or witnessed that truth.
There's something that seems to feel so safe and secure when you trust yourself. It's like the very foundation. If you can't trust yourself, how, of course it's going to be so uncomfortable to make decisions. You'll second guess everything that you do, wonder if what you're doing is in your best interest. It's almost like constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yeah. What do you want to make sure everyone knows as we wrap up?
I just want to spread the message. I work one-on-one with clients on self-awareness, and I call myself a self-awareness facilitator because I just want to bring the message of self-awareness to everyone. I want you to know that if you are someone that is out there and you feel like you're settling for anything, or if you feel like you don't have that empowerment, the answer really lies, all of the answers lie within yourself. And how can you access those answers if you don't have self-awareness? The answer to the majority of your problems are right under your nose, but you have to get in there and understand the person, yourself, who those answers are within. And this way you can create whatever fulfillment it is that you need in your life. To wake up every morning, not need an alarm blasting in your ear, not need 5 cups of coffee with 5 shots of espresso to get through the day, because you're living a life that you've created in self-awareness. It aligns with who you are. You're excited to get up and get your day started. And that's how I want everyone to live. Because I've gone from, one side of the spectrum, depression, to being that person that gets up and looks forward to their day and literally everything that they do in that day. And there's no reason that everyone shouldn't feel like that.
And it's so, and I always find this, isn't it so clear when someone is doing the work they're meant to do because they've been through it, they've traveled the path, they've learned the shortcuts, and now they just want to teach it to others. And alignment, you mentioned the word alignment. That's a huge thing. It's being congruent, with what you say, with what you feel, with what you do. When it's all lined up, that's flow. Then you're in that flow state, and life is just moving with you. You're not constantly feeling like you're battling and swimming upstream.
Absolutely.
Lisa, where can we go to learn more about you?
Oh, you can find me on my website, lisalatimer.com. From there, you can access my book, the blog, and podcast, which are both personal growth lifestyle. And, and again, I do work with clients, but yeah, you can jump on there and you can get to all my social links from there as well.
Oh, terrific. Lisa, thank you so much. I think we're all much more self-aware, and we're going to take journaling a little bit more seriously. I know I get a tremendous amount of value every time I journal, and I'm going to look at it with new eyes. And so I just want to thank you so much. I know you shared a lot of insight and wisdom, and my listeners totally appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
I love how Lisa talked about proving the contrary. Where you might automatically think something, there's a belief that has you going down a certain path, then you proactively journal and ask yourself questions to prove it's not true. This reminds me to reread The Work by Byron Katie. I totally recommend it. Stay in touch with Lisa by going to lisalatimer.com, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. When it comes to boundaries, start by setting them for yourself first. This may be uncomfortable, making new rules and agreements for yourself, but it's actually really important. Once you see you're able to set boundaries for yourself, whatever they are for you, then from that place can you begin to set them with others. Now, of course, having boundaries crossed and behaving from a lack of self-awareness can leave all kinds of cleanup that is needed in its wake. Don't worry, we gotcha. Take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz, which you can find at thepbtinstitute.com PBT.com/quiz. And have you checked out the PBT Institute membership community? Imagine everything you'd ever need to become your physical, mental, emotional best. Community, support, certified coaches and practitioners you could schedule time with, daily classes on all kinds of interesting topics, curated experts teaching advanced strategies in the areas of health, mindset, spirituality, personal development. Imagine the most friendly, welcoming, and supportive place to become your best, all online. Nothing like this exists, and I am so excited to welcome you. Go to thepbtinstitute.com/join to learn more. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time, and here's to your breakthrough.